Hello, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Transfer Talk podcast. Now, you may notice that we're not in our glitzy new studio right now, and that's because at the time of recording, a couple more big stories were to break in the hours afterwards. So I'm here with Sam Tighe, and we're going to discuss the big move for Elliot Anderson and the latest news about Bruno Guimaraes potentially also leaving Newcastle United. Sam, great to see you, my friend. Are you okay?
I'm very well, thank you, mate. Emergency draft, emergency meeting, big stories. They require comments, so here we are.
Absolutely right, absolutely right. And once we've gone through the Anderson and Bruno stories, we'll be handing over to Dharmesh Sheth to take us through all of the other transfer news for you, as always. But let's start with this Anderson news, Sam, because, look, we've been talking about it for weeks and weeks and weeks, but now it looks like they're finally there. Deal agreed, £116 million, a fixed fee, so guaranteed that City will pay that full 116 million. It's the most expensive British player ever, Elliot Anderson. Goodness me, surpassing the 115 million that Real Madrid paid for Jude Bellingham. First of all, mate, you're always brilliant on the fees. What do you make of this one?
Yeah, so it looks a lot like Evangelos Marinakis, the Nottingham Forest owner and chairman, decided that he wanted a record. For him to part with such a player, he was going to have his name go down in the history books as well, which I think, from what I know of Marinakis and what I've seen, yeah, that just about looks right. So if we take the fee, £116 million, it's 1 million more than Jude Bellingham could possibly cost if all of his add-ons are met. And it's about £10 million more than Declan Rice moved to Arsenal 3 seasons ago. So you think about how things have got more expensive in the world, not just football, but generally. Declan Rice, 105 million, add 3 years worth of inflation. Is that more or less where we've come to here? Is this effectively a Declan Rice deal 3 years later, just adding in for inflation? Probably. And you know what? Fair enough. If that's what you want to use as your benchmark, and we talk about all that all the time, don't we? We talk about how football uses benchmarks. Forest well within their rights there to say, take that Rice deal, add 3 years worth of inflation, and here we are. So look, I as you well know, it's very difficult for footballers to prove worth over £100 million. But if anyone's got a shot, it's Elliot Anderson, because he's fantastic.
Big fee to live up to. There's different pressure now. When he went to Nottingham Forest, relatively well, Newcastle United will feel like a very low fee now, for considering how quickly it's gone into this sort of huge transfer fee. A lot to live up to, but you think he's a player who can live up to a fee like that?
Look, I think he's superb. We've been talking about it all summer, as you say. I love the fact that he can do so many different things. So, you know, he was the most prolific ball winner in the Premier League last season. He also had the most touches on the ball of anyone. So you've got that in possession style, and you've got that out of possession kind of monstrous streak. So add that to the fact that he takes a really nice set piece, you know, a good corner and a nice free kick, and he can spot a really nice pass and clip one into the path of someone as well. He scored a screamer at the Etihad earlier this season. Bit low on the goals. I think he only got 3 last season, but he can strike from distance. There really isn't very much that Elliot Anderson cannot do. So again, if you're looking at who can we spend big on and who has the ability to live up to those expectations, it probably is a player that doesn't have noted faults or concerns. It probably is a player like this who can do a bit of everything. And you know, when you watch him play for England, you see him take a lot of the ball, a lot of touches, high volume passer, very, very accurate with his passes, but very progressive too. And when you watch him for Forest, often it's win the ball back, win the ball back, win the ball back, and just create that shield in front of the defence. So genuinely a player I think is brilliant because he can do it all. So yes, someone that is going to fall into that question, into that category of, if we're going to spend big, who should it be?
And does he make City better? Does he make them more balanced?
Better, yes. Balanced, I don't know. But let's say more solid. Let's say more solid. I mean, with him and Rodri in midfield together, you're going to have a tough time getting through that. And he's going to replace Bernardo Silva short term. I wonder maybe in the long term if this is the Rodri future-proofing. We're yet to see if they get another year out of Rodri. If they do, I'm sure that they'll play together. And beyond
Does that work?
Maybe.
Would that work?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, personally, I'd be delighted if I was the manager and I knew that my midfield was Rodri and Elliot Anderson, because, like, first of all, that screens the defensive line so incredibly well. It covers the holes that the fullbacks leave when they move forward. But also, because it's that platform and because it can pen teams in and win the ball back over and over again and keep teams penned in, it gives you so much dominance and the capacity to do so many things with the other front four players, because you know that you've got these two sat in the middle, protecting, screening, winning the ball back. You don't have to worry too much then about like how much defensive work is my winger going to get through. You know, can we protect a lack of pressing from Doku or Haaland or whoever it might be? It opens up this world of possibilities when you've got two people in there that you just be like, yeah, I can trust you.
Incredible to think that England's triangle now in the middle with Bellingham, Rice and Anderson have all cost north of £100 million. You've got over £300 million worth of midfield in the England midfield. I mean, it says a lot about the talent available for Thomas Tuchel. Also, I guess the coaching and development of players in general in this country.
Yeah. I mean, look, Pete, I mean, for as long as I've been watching football, England have had some pretty damn good midfielders. It's not that we haven't produced, right? From Jarrod, Lampard, Scholes, all this stuff all the way through. So for me, this is just more of the same. But what we are looking at here are three players who are much more tactically well-rounded, much more tactically pliable. They're all better defensively than the three I just mentioned. And that makes them, I don't know, it just feels a bit different, doesn't it? And they're all much easier to play together, thankfully.
Yeah, it's exciting times, I think, as far as England and English players coming through. It all sounds great, doesn't it? When you've got players who've come through academy systems in England and they're ending up being the most expensive players in the world. I mean, it says a lot about the things that, you know, we're very quick to say what we do wrong in England with football terms, but this is three great examples of three players who've really flourished, which is great to see. And before I let you go, Sam, there was another story broke fairly recently, and I feel bad for our listeners and people watching, because last week I was so down in the dumps about the whole Sandro Tonali debacle, and now a week later, I thought I wasn't going to have to talk about transfers, but I'm back here because Bruno Guimaraes, who is the leading light at Newcastle United, he is the one that the fans adore, the one that he's the boyhood hero of just about every young Geordie walking around the streets of Newcastle, Bruno Guimaraes. And in this latest news now that all of a sudden Arsenal have come in, they're exploring the conditions of a deal for Bruno. No official club-to-club contact is what we're told, but it's thought that there was an informal proposal which has been rejected out of hand by intermediaries. And there's certain reports in various places that bid was under £60 million for a player that's got 3 assists in the World Cup already. And like I say, is the linchpin of Newcastle United, both on and off the field. He's the club captain. We're told Newcastle's position is unchanged. They do not want to sell the 28-year-old. They will not welcome any bids. He's under contract until 2028. And that he's one of a number of players that Arsenal are looking at here with an expectation, as we've talked about, there will be arrivals and departures at Arsenal, of course, this summer. What are your thoughts on this, mate? I mean, there was a suggestion in the Telegraph. Luke Edwards said that actually Bruno, he expects that he'll be offered a bumper new contract at Newcastle. I mean, sometimes these things come to fruition, but can you see a world where Newcastle let Tonali and Bruno both leave? And how damaging would it be for Newcastle if Bruno does go?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's your best player. So losing your best player would obviously hurt a lot. Losing both of your best midfielders would be awful, particularly off the back of Anthony Gordon. And I feel for you, mate, because you're also watching the one that got away, Elliot Anderson, moving for a £116 million fee. So it's a tough moment for Newcastle and former Newcastle midfielders from the fan perspective. But look, you know as well as I do, and everyone else should too, how good Bruno Guimaraes is. So it can be no surprise that a club like Arsenal, who are clearly looking to level up in midfield, having also asked the question about Tonali and now exploring those conditions for Guimaraes too. It can't be a surprise that they're looking at this. The thing is, with these situations here, like with Tonali, if Tonali goes, he'll go for a huge, huge fee, right? If we're already talking about 75, 80 million not being good enough, then whatever the fee ends up being, I think that Newcastle will come out the better end of that because they would have made so much money on a deal. My concern is that you can't win in the Bruno Guimaraes deal partially because he's going to turn 29 later this year. So any interested party isn't going to want to put up those kind of 85, 90, 100 million numbers for a player who is going to turn 29. They'd be much more comfortable if he was 3 years younger. So that means that Newcastle then have a really difficult situation, because there's just no way that they're going to get what I think is fair market value for a player that good. And then they're going to have that conversation, and they're going to have to try and convince Bruno that he's got to stay. I don't think you can afford to lose this player. I think you can afford to lose Gordon, Tonali. I don't think it's the same situation with Bruno. I really don't.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think it's going to be a fascinating few weeks at Newcastle United. A few incomings would certainly calm the waters up here a little bit, because as I sit here now, I've just been out and about in the streets of Newcastle. Someone stopped me in the street and said, "Have you heard the news? Bruno now is," that was the first I'd heard of it, and I've looked into it, and obviously with Gordon gone already, Tonali getting bids from various places and interest, and now Bruno. It's just a lot of work for the people at Newcastle United to do, to hopefully put a smile back on Newcastle fans' faces, and my own, for the sake of our Transfer Talk watchers and listeners. Sam, thank you very much indeed. You're not going anywhere, because you're part of the full wider Transfer Talk podcast, which I'm about to hand over to. So Sam, thanks very much for your time there. Our listeners will hear from you again in just a second. So let's hand over to the full Transfer Talk team. This week we have Jack Rosser from The Sun. Sky Sports News reporter Michael Bridge is in the studio as well. And sitting in my presenter chair, the ever-reliable Dharmesh Sheth. Over to you.
Michael, talking about players with big price tags. Julian Alvarez, he's a name that was dominating before the World Cup, and it's developed during the World Cup as well, because after one of Argentina's games, he actually said effectively that he wants to leave to fulfill his dream. So he wants to leave Atletico Madrid. That dream, we think, is to go to Barcelona. They've already rejected 150 million from Real Madrid. They've got a 500 million euro release clause on Julian Alvarez. With these comments that he's made, though, do you believe now that maybe, just maybe, that price tag might just be eking a little bit down?
Yeah, definitely. And also, have you ever been on social media when you check if that account is actually real? I know it's harder than ever, but when Atletico were sort of openly posting certain videos to Real Madrid and posting videos to Barcelona, I'm just double checking it. That tick, is it definitely the official account? We're talking about mega clubs, not, we're not Ishmael Ryman League, it's quite unbelievable what I was looking at, but it was very clear. I was in Madrid for the Champions League farce of a game against Spurs in March, and he was the one the locals constantly talked about. There's something about him, and of course it was interesting to see his development from his Manchester City days. I know there's been tentative talks about interest from Arsenal. That hasn't really sort of come this summer, but it was maybe last season. So we are certainly entering saga territory. And when you've got Barcelona and Real Madrid vying for the same player, you are going to get a bit of a story.
You are, absolutely. It would help as well if he could maybe get fit and play at the World Cup, because he's been pretty absent so far. Obviously, he ended up playing the last stages of the season injured, didn't he? The fact that he was withdrawn chasing the game against Arsenal in the semi-final, that told you that he was probably playing through something, because when you're chasing that game, there's no way you're taking off a player like Alvarez unless you absolutely have to. So we actually haven't seen the best of him over the last couple of months, which is a big shame. But again, if 150 million euros has already been rejected, it is time to stop. Like, if it goes any higher, there's just almost no chance that he will prove worth that fee. We're ticking up towards Kylian Mbappe's £160 million-ish transfer here. And there's a debate over whether Mbappe was worth it really for PSG, even after all this. So I'd be very cautious here. Like, we are getting to the point here that they're dizzy heights with these prices, and players generally at this cost don't prove worth it. So it might be one to park and pick up another time.
What is interesting, though, because I was at the Atletico Madrid Arsenal game in the semi-finals of the Champions League, and Diego Simeone actually did say, oh yeah, there are these clubs that are interested in Julian Alvarez. I just wonder whether, if it is a Real Madrid or a Barcelona, direct rivals in La Liga, that they're rejecting 150 million euros for, maybe Arsenal could see an opportunity here, because they are definitely interested in him. And would it take 150 million euros for Arsenal to sign someone like Julian Alvarez? Because Atletico Madrid would more likely, if he is to go, sell him to a club outside Spain rather than a Real Madrid or a Barcelona, right?
There's definitely an opportunity for them there, especially if it keeps dragging on in that Madrid. I've quite enjoyed watching Jose Mourinho come back to Madrid, sit there and just play games by bidding for absolutely everyone, and maybe sort of go, oh, well, actually, yeah, we might be interested in him as well, and just sort of toying with everyone while they're all sort of waiting to go. But if it carries on like that with Madrid, Barcelona and Atletico knocking back their bids, the longer it goes on, the more of a shot Arsenal have got, because Alvarez, like you said, has made it clear he wants to go. Does it really suit anyone for him to stick around, having come out that firmly and said, look, it's time for me to move on? And again, like Sam said, he's a great player, but he's not a generational transform your team, blow every single pound you've got on this player. He's not a Erling Haaland figure, a Jude Bellingham, who actually you didn't have to pay sky-high fees for because deals were arranged with release clauses, and no one's obviously going to go up to that 500 million euro one. The longer it drags on, Arsenal have got the status, the stature, and the funds. I know they spent big last summer, but the funds to come in and maybe go, do you know what, we don't need an awful lot this summer. We just need a bit to fine-tune it and kick on a tiny bit more. And I think he'd be a great addition.
I'm sure we haven't heard the last of Alvarez or Elliot Anderson. Big money potentially signing during this transfer window. Let's focus on Chelsea now, because they are very, very close to bringing in a player. And Xabi Alonso's first signing potentially, that's from Atalanta, the right back or the right wing back, Marco Palestra, joining from Atalanta, we think, if all goes well, in a package worth around £43 million. Sam, what kind of player are they getting?
The reigning Serie A Defender of the Year, Dharmesh.
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't come bigger than that. Albeit, I think we'll put an asterisk over that because Federico Di Marco was the Serie A Player of the Season, also a wing-back. So they decided to split them up and honour two players, which is lovely. But Di Marco hit 17 assists last season and broke the record in Serie A. So I think he was the best defender. We'll have to say that Palestra was the second, but still a pretty big honour. First proper full campaign as a senior, and looks like pure wing back. And we discussed last week, Dharmesh, we were asking, what's Xabi Alonso going to do? Is he going to go back to his back three that he liked at Bayer Leverkusen, or is he going to go with the back four, which he potentially felt forced to play at Real Madrid, because you can't really get away with playing three centre-backs at Real Madrid? This is the first big clue. Palestra is a wing-back. Like, he is built like a wing-back. He's tall, long stride, loves to knock the ball into space and run. That, to me, looks like a very pure Italian wing-back style. So this could be the first clue here that Xabi Alonso is going to go back three and wing-backs. And Palestra's, he looks like a very modern version of what Serie A has seen in the last 10 years or so. If you think about Atalanta's full wing-back pairing of Robin Gosens and Hans Hateboer from about 5-6 years ago, this is like Hans Hateboer, but someone taught him how to control the ball and play in tight spaces, as well as gun it up and down the flank. He's a very exciting player. Everyone that I've spoken to about this, sources in Italy, scouts, they all just think he's brilliant. Inter wanted him, Milan wanted him, everyone wanted him, and Chelsea have got him. Yeah,
I should just say that Inter Milan thought they were going to get him. I've been speaking to a couple of people close to Palestra, and they actually agreed personal terms with both Chelsea and Inter Milan. And such is his respect for Atalanta, he let them decide who, if they were going to sell him, who are they going to sell him to? And clearly, Atalanta are going to choose the team that are going to bid more money. And I suppose as well, when we were talking about before, Julian Alvarez and Atletico Madrid and selling to a team in La Liga, would it be preferable for Atalanta maybe to go to Chelsea, for Palestra to go to Chelsea as far as Atalanta are concerned, as opposed to an Inter Milan? But we're expecting that one to materialize and go through sooner rather than later. Jack, just picking up on what Sam was saying there about the area of the pitch that Xabi Alonso and Chelsea seem to be focusing on right now, are you surprised that he's gone straight for that fullback area, and or is it a sign that, as Sam mentioned, right, this is a sign that this is how I'm going to play? It is likely to be three at the back because I want to bring in a right wing back.
Yeah, I thought they'd more focus on central defenders early on, but they don't seem to have quite identified exactly who they want to go for there. The one thing that surprises me with it is that once Rossinha had gone, we had this whole narrative from Chelsea that, right, we're going into a period of reflection. We know we've got to change our strategy a bit. We're going to get a manager, not a head coach, and we're going to stop just signing up and coming promising players. We want some Premier League experience. We want some leadership in there. Alonso has made it clear that he wants some senior figures to come in and give a bit of character and grit to this squad in terms of having dealt with ups and downs throughout the season, because that's where Chelsea have struggled over the last couple of years, is being knocked back and not knowing what to do, and usually getting someone sent off and spiraling further out of control. So it's slightly surprising that they've gone and signed a young wing-back from Italy rather than look to pick up someone with plenty of Premier League games under their belt. If they felt, and Sam will know more than me, the talent he's got and the potential he's got, if they felt that this is one we just can't miss out on, it makes sense.
Chelsea think about that most players, though, don't they?
Well, exactly, that's the problem.
They just go, we can't miss out on him, we're going to have to buy him.
Because you've also got, I think, Valentin Barco coming in from Strasbourg this summer, which isn't quite confirmed yet. Mega coming in from over there. Giovanni Quenda as well coming over from Sporting. You just think this horde, every summer, this horde of young promising players to like get off the bus outside the training ground.
And there's no Europe this season.
And there's no Europe.
That's a massive difference.
They sort of almost have to line up and they go, oh, maybe we'll loan you. Maybe we'll give you a go for 6 months. Then you'll go out on loan.
Strasbourg.
Yeah. You're going out on loan.
This is a whole different podcast.
But it does strike me that they need to move for someone with a bit of experience. If they're going to play that three at the back, there aren't many central defenders available there at the moment that you can rely on to be of a high enough level and also available throughout the entire season. So they need to invest. Reece James can probably shift in there to be one of those three if Palestra is going to be starting on the right. They need to look at the left side as well, given Cucurella's gone and Jarrod Hato was encouraging, but has never played that role, with more of a centre half.
Definitely not played wing back. Hato.
No.
He's played left back.
Yeah.
He's played centre back, but not much wing back. So he profiles really well for left centre back in a three, like perfectly actually, because he's kind of a hybrid between the two, but does open up those questions for sure. There has been some reporting in the last sort of 24, 48 hours about interest in Maxence Lacroix for Chelsea, who is effectively a central centre back in a three. So might be another clue. Now, that's not to say that Lacroix can't just play in a back four. He did for Wolfsburg, and he was excellent doing so. But for the last 3 years or so, Maxence Lacroix has been at the centre of a back three for Palace, and he's been really good at it. Now, he is, 26, 27? So
27, I think, yeah.
Shading towards that kind of more experienced category. Premier League experience in abundance. Obviously, a very good player in the France squad. So maybe another clue, and maybe that's a suggestion that they have still got that on their minds. Just because, I know you're not saying this, but just because the first signing is young doesn't mean they're not still thinking about that.
No, they will, yeah. And it's something Alonso
the total
wants.
haul for the summer, it does need to reflect that thinking, because otherwise they went into that period of introspection and came out with the exact same strategy.
Yeah, so Michael, with Palestra seemingly on his way, could be an odd man out there at Chelsea. It could be Malo Gusto. There is talk that he could be reunited with Enzo Maresca if and when Enzo Maresca becomes the Manchester City head coach. As far as City are concerned, is that the area that they need to strengthen in?
Well, obviously, Matheus Nunes has always sort of played there quite a bit, but you never feel like it was his actual position. I just feel like now, post Pep Guardiola, everyone at Manchester City is obviously going to be on trial. It's just going to be completely different for everyone. I'm so intrigued to see it. You know, they need to get this confirmed, because I think a lot needs to be done with Manchester City. I mean, I don't know about you, but there's a lot of players you feel, how are they going to cope post Pep?
I mean, how would anyone cope post Pep? Yeah, it's difficult. 10 years of Pep, and he just creates this incredibly high floor for a team where they basically can't get below fourth because they're just too good. They're too well coached. And that's all different now. So what happens? Gusto following Maresca, I mean, obviously price per minute, but stylistically, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Like, Maresca really liked Gusto. He was more than happy to have him come into the team whenever Reece James wasn't there, wasn't fit, often played them together, with obviously Reece James playing kind of midfieldish, kind of right backish, and then Gusto a bit higher up. And what we know about Maresca's style is it's quite possession focused, very possession focused. It's quite slow. It's very controlling. Gusto is that kind of player. So I don't look at Gusto and see a flying wing back in the way that I see that with Palestra, in the way that I see that with maybe Giovanni Quenda, who you mentioned coming in from Sporting. And if you look at who Alonso used at right wing back for Leverkusen, it was Frimpong, the speedster. It was Nathan Teller to a point, who was just super direct. Gusto to me is a very slow sort of control-based player. So for him to make that move over with Maresca, stylistically it would make a lot of sense. It's just about whether or not the price is right.
Sam, if Gusto goes, Cucurella's gone already, that's 2 players in those fullback positions leaving. How do you view that? Is that Xabi Alonso saying, no, I don't fancy them? Or is this higher up than Xabi Alonso and a business decision?
I'm sure it's a mix of everything. That's a terrible answer, but Cucurella clearly wanted to go. Like, he said as much in March, and he hasn't really stopped saying it. And now he's calling over the fence to Enzo Fernandes, saying, "Come join me." It's really nice over here. Like, and obviously we know that Enzo also wants to leave. If we all agree that having players that don't want to play for the club is bad, we just touched on it with Julian Alvarez. Like, having a player like that who has expressed a desire to go in your midst it generally does not work out well. Why would you keep Cucurella, I guess, and why would you keep someone like Enzo Fernandes? So maybe with Cucurella, it's a slightly different situation where
he wanted to keep him around as well. Alonso, they had a long chat before the World Cup started and sort of Alonso laid out his plans to him. Cucurella's spoken about that and how impressed he was. But there was a big feeling that for a number of reasons, he wanted to not just go, but go back to Spain and experience playing. He was in the Barcelona academy, but never really got a shot. And
well, his La Liga experience is Getafe, isn't it? Playing for the least Spanish team in history. So yeah, probably go and give that a crack. I mean, a lot of players like that, they want to go back and prove themselves at one of Spain's top clubs. Right now we're just watching Alejandro Grimaldo agree a move back to Atletico Madrid. He came through the Barca academy, left, went to Benfica, went to Bayer Leverkusen. He never actually played for Barcelona, and he's talked about how that was a big miss, and he wants to go back and play in Spain. So Cucurella is similar. So I think we can separate the two. I think Cucurella, for various reasons, probably needed to go, and it wasn't necessarily a case of Alonso not wanting him. With Gusto, I wouldn't be surprised if Alonso says, "You're not my kind of player. You don't play wing back the way I want to play a wing back."
That's not to say he's not a good player. I agree that he probably doesn't fit that sort of flying style. He's been much more effective. Him and Reece James have been quite interchangeable, and both of them moving into midfield at times as well, either as part of the Maresca structure or as a starting player in midfield on a couple of occasions as well. He's a good player. He's a promising player. The fact that Chelsea have made it quite clear they want £75 million for him might hamper it a touch.
That is that's an interesting price.
That is a big price for a right back. Because I think Cesar Azpilicueta, speaking about Cucurella, was sort of saying, I don't know what it feels like to move for that much money, especially as a defender. And then what was that, 47.5 million for Cucurella, who is a much more established and proven player, going to an enormous club in Real Madrid.
Gusto moving for £75 million, like that would blow the fullback transfer record in history by like £20 million. That's how expensive this is. And with the greatest respects to Malo Gusto, he is not one of the best 20 fullbacks on the planet, let alone one of the best ever to have played. So that seems completely out of line at this point. But Chelsea are obviously going to set a high price and see what they can do. Like, it's all part of the game. So
it will be interesting to see how happy City are to give Maresca what he wants as well, if that price is so high. Not that I think Man City will go to that level, but if Maresca really does say, I want Gusto, and like you said, he's a big fan of him, they're very intertwined in that it was a rather innocent question about Malo Gusto that started the worst 48 hours of my life debacle that saw Maresca go from winning 2 trophies to very quickly leaving Chelsea. So they probably owe each other one at some point. But it will be interesting if City do have the faith in Maresca to say, all right, this is the one you want, we'll go and get him for you.
Yep, we're expecting a very, very busy transfer window for Chelsea, where we heard that before. But let's move on to the busiest Premier League club so far. Should be a little quiz question, shouldn't it? And that is Tottenham Hotspur. Yes. Jean-Paul Van Hecke in for a fee in the region of £52 million. Free transfers in the form of Andrew Robertson, which looks like a great, great deal. Yep, just agreeing with me, good. And Marco Senesi as well, which looks like a fantastic deal. And of course, they brought in another goalkeeper in Martin Dubravka. But Michael, here you've got some news of one of their current keepers as well.
Yeah, good story, this one. For for someone who's, quite the recovery, redemption, whatever you want to call it. Anton Kinski, who was the Tottenham goalkeeper for the last few matches under Roberto De Zerbi, understand that he's going to sign a new long-term contract with an option for a further year with greatly improved terms, which is obviously great news for him. And I think, well-deserved. And, he made some unbelievable saves in the last few games for Tottenham Hotspur. And, there was so much said about, the couple of slips he made in Madrid. And I think one pundit said his career in Europe is over and this, that, and the other he had to contend with. And, he didn't look at that at all. So I think it's great news for him. It's interesting because does that suggest now that he's going to be the number one going into the new season? Because obviously, as you mentioned, Dubravka's come in, that's done. I feel that means Guillermo Vicario will go back to Serie A, which club we'll wait and see. But does that definitely mean Kinski's the Spurs number one? I'm not 100% sure on that. But what we can tell you is that he will sign a new contract.
Yeah, interesting story, that one, given what you mentioned about what happened to him at Atletico Madrid. It feels like, Jack, that midfield is a big priority. We say this for quite a few clubs, don't we? But in particular, Tottenham Hotspur, rejected bid of around £80 million for Sandro Tonali. The bang in for Matheus Fernandes at West Ham United. Did you expect that to be the primary focus for Tottenham Hotspur in this window?
I think everyone would have looked at the back and thought Romero will go. That is where they'll need to invest.
There's even talk now that he might
stick around. Yeah, which no one really saw that coming a few months ago. Everyone thought, he's on his way and almost good riddance to him because it's been such a difficult time with him as captain. And do you take the armband off him or not? They obviously moved quite quickly to get Van Heck from Brighton, who I think is a very smart signing, as is Senesi, especially on a free. I've loved watching him as part of Iraola's Bournemouth team, the way he defends on the front foot, and he's such a presence at the back. So I think they're two very smart signings. I think we would all looked at Tottenham over the last couple of years and said midfield is something that needs to change. There's a lot of players in there that have shown promise at times and just not really worked out for one reason or another. And it, you saw at the end of last season when they're suddenly turning back to Basuma and having to rely on someone that they hadn't really thought about for quite a long time at the club, that's somewhere that needs addressing. I didn't think they'd try and address it quite so aggressively. I think a few people have been writing this week that's the element of Tottenham this summer that has caught a lot of not only fans and supporters of Tottenham, but executives at other clubs by surprise. Just sort of, you're actually, okay, yeah, fine. Yeah, if you want to do that, we can have a conversation. I think, Fernandes has come out of the blue a touch. It wasn't until last summer. I think before last summer, it was 2011 that a player last moved from West Ham to Tottenham, and that was Scott Parker. And they went and did Kudus last year. So there seems to have been a slight improvement in relations, at least upstairs, between those two clubs. So whether they can get in there ahead of Man United, I think it would be quite embarrassing for United if Tottenham managed to do that, given Real Madrid. Jose asked Real Madrid to have a look and then sort of found out that he's probably just going to Man United. I interviewed him this season. His idol is obviously Cristiano Ronaldo, but very closely followed by Bruno Fernandes. So you would think those two factors, Champions League, the fact it's Man United, there's a space there for him to go into that midfield and really battle for a place, that it should be quite an easy deal for United to get done. And if they're just not going to stump up the cash that West Ham want and Tottenham are, then it's a real big miss for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's good for West Ham United. Clearly, they don't want to lose him, but it's good that they've got two clubs trying to fight it out, because as we know, it will bump up the price. And let's see if United will go for it. We've spoken about Fernandes on this podcast in the past few episodes, Sam. He's a good fit at Old Trafford. We've accepted that. Can the same be said as a good fit for Roberto De Zerbi at Tottenham Hotspur as well?
Yeah, sure. I mean, he's a super all-rounder of a player, Matheus Fernandes. Like, there's very little you could point to say that he can't do. So with those kind of players, it's always
stay up in the Premier League.
Oh yeah.
No, he is a very good player.
Two strikes so far. Maybe this isn't a deal Spurs want to do. Relegated with Southampton, relegated with West Ham. Yeah, so third time's a charm for him. No, he's a good player. So of course, and Spurs need a revamp in midfield, like a complete revamp. We've talked about it quite a lot, but they have massive ball progression problems from midfield. Too many midfielders who are extremely similar in the fact that they can't move the ball forward properly. It hurt them all of last season. It will continue to hurt them unless they fix it. The centre-backs they're signing are very good passers, so that will help to a point, but you still need your midfielders to be able to work this ball through under pressure. Matheus Fernandes is an excellent passer who is super press resistant, so absolutely.
He also, he didn't struggle. He maybe took a little time to settle at West Ham after making that move from Southampton, but where he really flourished, and especially playing, like Sam says, in terms of progressing the ball forward, being on the front foot, always having that energy to try and drive the game on, was as soon as Lucas Bergvall left. He really stepped up and started to make an impact for West Ham, as did Crescencio Somerville. That was when he sort of burst into life. As soon as Bergvall was taken out of that team, after all that, undoubtedly a great player, we're seeing him play for Brazil and start for Brazil at the World Cup now, but after all the struggles he had and taking away from his game at West Ham, once the sort of get the ball gift to Paqueta had been taken out of West Ham, Fernandes really flourished and showed why he could be such a good addition.
I think in an ideal world, like West Ham would like to sell to Manchester United for years and years. West Ham, don't deal with Spurs. Chelsea, don't deal with Spurs. Arsenal and Chelsea swap players like Panini stickers, but there's always been that rivalry between Chelsea Spurs, West Ham Spurs, Arsenal Spurs, of course. There's no point wasting anyone's time on that. But football's changing now. You can't have that kind of attitude anymore. If you've got a good price for someone, good value, the clubs will consider it. And that is what will happen here ultimately. And West Ham will take the best deal for them. And if Fernandes gets a good deal from Tottenham, he'll go to Tottenham.
Michael, Jack mentioned it before there, that executives of other clubs are kind of raising their eyebrows and thinking, well, Spurs have come to the party. 80 million rejected for Tonali. They're talking about 80 million for Matheus Fernandes as well. Can they go even higher than that? And is that the approach this time? Because I do recall when Spurs were in the mire towards the end of last season, there were murmurings that things are going to change if they stay up. They have stayed up. They're going to pay higher wages. They're going to maybe pay higher transfer fees as well. Are we starting to see those promises being backed up now?
I was talking about Tottenham with someone the other day, and I got sent a picture of De Zerbi, and it said, it's not a quote from him, but it was funny. You should have relegated me when you had the chance. You know, and look, the message I've been given from Tottenham since De Zerbi's appointment. Look, a lot of managers looked at the Tottenham job in March and said, look, big club, but I don't want my face in the books years to come that my face is on Tottenham Hotspur relegated. Spurs have wanted De Zerbi for a long time. February, they went all out, but he'd only just left Marseille. They went in again after Igor Tudor, and they basically said, if you keep this club up, you have the keys. A bit like Xabi Alonso, the first team manager. Spurs, I'm told, aren't going to have a director of football now. I know there's a sporting director with Johan Langer. There was an expectation another one was going to come in for this summer. That is not happening this summer. And a big reason why I think that is because Roberto De Zerbi is leading this. They are trying to keep their promises and say, we are going to do our best for you and what you want. There's no way Jan-Paul van Hecke would have joined Tottenham under the previous regime. It might have gone on till deadline day and Spurs might have saved 5 million. By then, the season started. He's unsettled. He's not ready. They've got it done. Yes, they've paid a lot of money, but two things can still happen. Brighton can get a lot of money, but Tottenham can still get a very good player. And ultimately, with embedding in so early, that might be the difference between 6th and 5th, 5th and 4th. Yes, I'm being maybe I'm being a bit over ambitious. But
I don't know, because they're spending so much money on so many players. They're obviously aiming to go from 17th to 5th.
Yes, and also 4th, obviously. Also, let's not forget, Manchester United was 17th a few weeks before the Europa League final. Teams not in Europe next season are going to be dangerous. I see it in the squad. I've had to cover Tottenham the whole of the last few seasons. I'm sorry, but the injuries take their toll, and they had it to an extreme level. Don't get me wrong, but what we're seeing at the moment is a promise from Vinay Venkatesham, Peter Charrington. We all thought it was a bit strange in the media room on the final day of the season that there was no sorry, but sort of like letter, like Daniel Levy. 25 years, I've always read his end of season program notes, and it would be always we've had the good season, but there was nothing. And that made me think, is someone going to leave tomorrow? But no, we had a statement from Vinay Venkatesham, non-executive chairman Peter Charrington, about this should never happen again, and we promise that we are going to spend big in the summer. The only thing you can do you just got to prove it, haven't you? You've got to prove it. Now, it's been a very solid start with the defenders. And to me, people could say, well, maybe they might save some money by making Kinski number one for now. The defense is done. And I think really they probably trying to think that Romero, do you want to go now? Sort of thing, because they look so... They've got too many. You've got Kevin Danso as well. You've got Luka Vuskovic, a player I've had more emails about than any player this summer who's never actually played a competitive game for Spurs. So there's Luka Vuskovic as well, who Brighton made a 45 million bid the other day. So they're overloaded with defenders. They're now looking at midfielders, and then they really need to look at the forward line as well, because that was substandard beyond belief last season. And yes, a lot of the reason was a Kulusevski injury, Kudus injury, and injuries. I get that, but they need to add quality in that front line as well.
Sam, if it was a straight choice between Tonali and Matheus Fernandes, which direction should Tottenham Hotspur go in?
I would, if the prices are equal, so let's call it 85 million because 80 million has been rejected. I'd take Matheus Fernandes over Tonali. 5 years younger is significant when you're putting this kind of money down. And yes, Matheus is obviously at 21. He is young, but he's a very experienced player for 21. He's now got two seasons in the books in Premier League level, a really strong loan at Chaves in Portugal when he had been loaned out by Sporting. And then everyone was kind of surprised to see that he didn't just go into the Sporting team, right? It was actually Ruben Amorim who sanctioned his surprising sale to Southampton that summer, and Southampton could not believe that they'd managed to get him. I remember speaking to contacts there, and they were just like stunned that they'd been able to get the deal done, because they just thought for sure that he would walk into that Sporting team. Didn't happen.
And he was excellent in that Southampton team as well, which was one of the worst Premier League teams that we've seen for the last couple of decades. I think 12 points they finished on, but he won Player of the Season, Players Player of the Season, Fans Player, everything. His first year in English football, first year living abroad in a new city. I don't think he had any family with him. He's spoken before about being a bit lonely there at times, but going out and playing in a terrible team in your first year overseas, he was proper chin up and putting performances in a terrible side.
I don't think we think about that enough as well. We all cover football transfers. We never, sometimes we don't acknowledge that enough, do we? You just said about not having family there, anything, and he's still putting in performances like that. He's 21. Yeah. I'm double his age. I can't get my head around it.
Don't start on that.
No, I know.
But yeah, I'd pick it. The 5 years is significant, but I also think that by the time Matheus Fernandes is 26, which is Tonali's current age, Matheus will be better than Tonali.
So Sam, you're saying Matheus Fernandes over Sandro Tonali, but Michael, is there a possibility that maybe, just maybe, Tottenham Hotspur could sign both Tonali and Matheus Fernandes?
I mean, it would be a serious statement to bring in both. There is a lot of Spurs supporters thinking, surely not. And I can totally understand that because the money involved, etc., etc. But I've not been told that it was one or the other, or that Newcastle were going to reject Tonali's bid. That meant Spurs went all in on Fernandes. The interest in him was way before the Tonali bid. So yeah, it's not one or the other from what I'm told so far.
You would think that both of these players would want to be involved in European competition, maybe even the Champions League. I think Tonali has actually come out and said that he would want to play in the Champions League. So what would the appeal of Tottenham Hotspur be?
I don't think Spurs have ever had a problem bringing in players. I mean, but then I'm going back. Even when they were poor for years in the 90s, there's always a Klinsmann, always a Ginola, always a glamour player. And I'm not so of the opinion that players are so desperate to be in Europe. Well, they maybe one or two. I think Sandro Tonali's made it clear. I think just to people, his team have made it clear. He's always loved being in London. We know he didn't really want to leave Italy at the time anyway. I think for Spurs, maybe Tonali, because of his name currently over Fernandes, it would really make a statement, not just inside the club, but maybe people outside, and go, you know what, fair play. Like, that is a proper signing, because he is a proper player. And I know it's frustrated Newcastle and they're scratching their heads, but last season was so public. Gibbs White, it's happening. It's not. Scores against Spurs. Eze, it's happening. Oh, it hasn't. He's got a hat trick against Spurs. It felt a little bit, got to a point it was quite humiliating. And I just feel this signing would really signal intent and make people outside look up.
De Zerbi is a big factor though, in that he's one of those sort of coach that all coaches fawn over unbelievably, and you sort of think, well, yeah, he's good, but he's not the Messiah. But a lot of people in football see him as that sort of. It's his tactical side. Players that played with him at Brighton.
Yeah, listen to what Van Hecke says about him.
Van Hecke
changed his life.
But you look at Adam Lallana as well, who's played for
the better though.
Yeah.
He's
played for Pochettino, played for Klopp, went to play for De Zerbi and said he's the most impressive manager he's ever worked with. And so many players that work with him at Brighton hold him in incredibly high stock. What he did for players like Lewis Dunk, got him in the England squad, Van Hecke as well, one of them, Jason Steele, bombed out Robert Sanchez, brought him in, said Jason Steele is one of the best players in Europe with his feet or goalkeepers. He's now not officially part of the squad, but off with England at a World Cup. So many players only have good things to say about him and are so inspired by him. So I think if you bring a target that was maybe a Tonali that thought, I want regular Champions League football, gets 5 minutes with De Zerbi and maybe thinks, I want to go and play for him.
Sam, you mentioned about ceilings with the likes of Tonali and Matheus Fernandes, and maybe when Fernandes gets to Tonali's age, he'll be a better player. Tottenham Hotspur are also interested, among other clubs, in Alex Scott from Bournemouth. Where is his ceiling compared to these two?
Yeah, he's a very different player to the other two. Of course, they're all different. But Alex Scott has a very distinct skill, doesn't he? His ability to dribble and carry the ball through pressure from deeper areas of the pitch as well. He's like if Jack Grealish was retrained to play central defensive midfield. And that you can't really teach, I would argue. It's a very natural talent. It's something that you have to be at ease with or not. And the other two players we're talking about do not have that. So generally speaking, when you look at attributes and you look at player traits, that will trump everything, basically. That ability to just dribble, just go, is so important. It does place Alex Scott in a very, very advantageous position, and he's ready to go. Like he's been 2 years now at the heart, genuinely at the heart of this Bournemouth midfield, taking control, taking on that important role, and saying, right, I'm going to get this done. They're all great players. Alex Scott probably best on the ball, Tonali best off the ball, Matheus the best hybrid mix, I would argue.
Michael, just finally on Tottenham Hotspur, we're talking about this huge midfield overhaul. Matheus Fernandes, Sandro Tonali, Alex Scott now. Even before we were talking about these players, last season, there was one player who looked like he had a big future at Tottenham Hotspur, showing lots of potential in Lucas Bergvall, but wasn't getting very many minutes under Roberto De Zerbi. It's going to be even further reduced with potential midfield recruitment during this summer's transfer window. He's actually made it clear that maybe Tottenham Hotspur isn't the right place for me to develop my career. What have you made of that? And is that the one surprise in amongst Roberto De Zerbi's tenure there so far, that he hasn't managed to get Lucas Bergvall playing the minutes that he would have wanted?
Yeah. The information I've got on the Lucas Bergvall situation is that he doesn't want to go, but he feels he has to go. That he feels like he's more experienced. I think he's only 20, but he turned down Barcelona to join Tottenham for a reason, and that reason isn't happening now. And he's looking afar and thinking, hold on, I'm getting told here that he wants to come in, he wants him. And it might actually, again, this is Tottenham saying, Roberto, that's up to you. You make the final call. Again, because Tottenham could potentially losing a very, very good player. But again, if your Spurs are going to sign him, and they're going to have to bring money in as well. And, there aren't, and he would command a decent fee, Lucas Bergvall. Vuskovic is the risk for me, because Spurs really don't want to sell him. And it could be down the line, Spurs could be, oh my goodness, what have we done?
I think this applies to both of them.
Yeah, for sure.
It's 100%. Like we're very impressed by the incomings at Spurs, but the potential cost on the other side is Bergvall and Vuskovic. We will see at the end of the window exactly how this turns out. But there is a chance that in 2 years we look back and go, oh dear.
Yeah, and will De Zerbi be there in 2 years? But Records will say probably not. He'd turn around and say that's unfair. He said to me, look, I don't care what division they'd have been in as long as I'm happy with what's going on
Well,
upstairs.
is De Zerbi then potentially going into this transfer window with win now?
Yes.
As opposed to, because we're talking about these
Yes.
young players that might
Yes.
not be getting the minutes.
Yeah.
But he's seen what's happened with Tottenham Hotspur in the last couple of seasons. That can't be allowed to happen again. I think everyone on the board is actually physically has actually said that.
But yeah.
And De Zerbi's now saying, well, I need players who've been there and done it,
Yeah.
mid-20s, ready to go into that team, not just the squad, but into that team.
The small dealings I've already had with Roberto De Zerbi. He's an intriguing guy, which you can all see. And you say about, what's he going to tell Tonali about Europe? I can imagine him saying, you can have 1 year out of Europe, and you're in it the year after, and you'll be my vice captain. That's the way De Zerbi speaks to people. Like, that's what he'll be probably saying to him. But in terms going back to Bergvall again, it would be a risk, but I think they'd command a decent fee. I think Pape Sarr might be the time for him to move on as well. They've lost. Basuma's gone, but he was on a pretty decent wage as well. So they have lost players. I think he'll keep Archie Gray because he can literally play anywhere. I worry for him that might be to his detriment down the line, but even so, that's why I think Gray will still be knocking around. So maybe Bergvall might just be right for him, and Spurs get a decent fee.
Right, let's move on from Tottenham Hotspur, but I'm sure we will be returning to Tottenham Hotspur nearly every single week on the Transfer Talk podcast. But it's a kind of a tenuous little link here, because we have been talking about Matheus Fernandes and this link with Tottenham Hotspur. Jack, you were reporting that potentially another player could be leaving the London Stadium, and it's the player that no West Ham fan wants to see leave the London Stadium. That is, of course, their captain, their talisman, Jarrod Bowen. Unsurprisingly, one of the clubs that are interested is Everton, managed by David Moyes, who used to manage Jarrod Bowen at West Ham United.
Signed Jarrod Bowen for West Ham.
And how well did he do under David Moyes as well? How do you see this situation unravelling? And is it going to unravel for West Ham United? Or is there a chance that Jarrod Bowen will say, you know what, I'm staying, I'm going to get this team back up?
So I think Fernandes and Somerville are quite cut and dry. Whatever Daniel Kretinsky, the Czech co-owner whose influence is growing this summer, came out and said we don't need to sell them. We want to keep our team together. It's all well and good saying that, but if two players turn around and say, I don't want to be here, and you've got big bids in for them, they go. That's the reality of it.
Are West Ham under pressure to generate some money here?
They are under less pressure than they were when they were relegated. Everything that's happened at board level means that Kretinsky is, like I said, he's becoming a bigger shareholder. He's going to become the largest shareholder if everything goes to plan, and he's ready to inject an awful lot of cash to secure their financial position, because when the accounts came out for the last season, they'd lost 104 million the season before the one just gone, and the accounts basically said if you go down, you need to sell, you need cash injected, you need both. So they're in a slightly better financial position, but they do still need money coming in. Fernandes and Somerville and Bowen present great chances for that. All of the West Ham squad, apart from Jarrod Bowen, have relegation wage cut clauses, some of them up to 50%. Jarrod Bowen doesn't, which isn't great probably for squad harmony, but it's great for West Ham fans because that means there is a bigger chance he stays. I don't really buy into the whole, you've got to go and tell your father-in-law, Danny Dyer, that you're leaving West Ham. I think really they
You can't tell Danny Dyer.
a lot
I
of,
disagree with you in that, by the way.
do you actually? You think that plays it? You genuinely think that plays it? Yeah.
What's up, son?
Yeah. I don't really buy all of that. I think if he wanted to go, they'd all support him going, that sort of thing. But a lot of people around Jarrod Bowen have said he's always enjoyed the large role and figure he is at West Ham, at a club of West Ham size.
Would the omission from the England squad have had any impact on what he might do in the summer?
Yeah, I think so, because Thomas Tuchel came out straight away and said it's because of West Ham's situation that he's not here. He's been unlucky in that they're down there. And as much as he is an absolute icon at West Ham, scored that goal in the Conference League final, has carried them for a long time at times. The second half of the season, he wasn't fantastic. There are a lot of performances that he got a few assists here and there, but was not delivering like a lot of West Ham fans have seen him, which would also play into maybe he sticks around and repays them, because like I said, he will probably have a statue there one day, having scored that goal. If he stays with them and brings them back up, he'll have a stand named after him at some point at the London Stadium. So he is. When they got relegated, everyone sort of went, well, whenever anyone gets relegated, reel off 15 players. They're going to
Which
leave
never happens.
immediately,
Yeah.
which never happens because it can't happen. I'd still be surprised if he was there in the Championship next season. I wouldn't be completely stunned.
That would be his England career over, though, wouldn't it? Surely. I mean, what age and or a huge dent.
Well,
That's a whole season.
yeah, but then it's 2 years to the next major tournament.
Yeah.
So if he can get back up, he then have one Premier League year running into the Euros. So maybe that would be enough.
That's
It's
It's
risky.
a risk,
risky,
but
yeah.
so is
he's a year.
uprooting and moving to a whole different city and club. And even if it's with David Moyes, who's someone that we know will trust him, we know will play him.
It's a good. It'd be the same for Everton because they need a lift. Because watching them on the last day of the season, it was very flat. And then
They wouldn't have scored in 200
no,
minutes.
and
like,
the Everton-based journo's next to me, and you know what David's like, and I'm a big fan of his, but he didn't really like the answers, but I think the questions were fairish, pretty fair, but it felt like a flat end to the season, and they do need revitalising. Didn't help obviously Grealish's injury because he's a glamour player, but it all felt flat, and a Bowen would be a real lift, wouldn't it?
It would definitely he'd be a great signing for him. I don't know if it'd be one of those that's like everyone can get incredibly, because of his age, that everyone can get incredibly excited about. And I also wonder I think Bowen slightly sits outside of this, but there's been some links with Thomas Souček as well, whether David Moyes would worry about the sort of, not reputation, but the narrative, he's just bringing his boys in and
Where have we seen that before?
well, quite exactly. He doesn't want that
Fellaini?
following him around.
Hello, mate.
Yeah. And Souček is someone that was compared to Fellaini a lot when he came into West Ham, and Moyes really didn't like that. So Souček would definitely sit in that category. Bowen, there's some consideration to it, but I think because of the level of player he is and what they need, he wouldn't quite fit that billing.
Sam, Aston Villa, another club linked with Jarrod Bowen. Does he fit at Villa?
Yeah, he does. I think he looks pretty good fit for Emery. He brings a lot of attributes that Villa are currently missing. Bit of speed, comfortable on the right flank, could also sort of play up front in a sort of strange way. Emery doesn't use strikers the way most people do, so for the same reason he ended up putting Rashford up front quite a lot of the time. Bowen could also probably do that. So I think it actually does work out quite well. This is a signing. So let's say for the point that Bowen will cost £40 million or more. Let's just say that's the case. It's not going to be less than 30, right? So it's going to be a hefty deal. His contract will be expensive because he's already on a lot of money. He's 29. Modern football will tell you that this is a terrible idea. The whole point of this is to sign 21 to 22-year-olds for 50 million. Either they work out or they don't, and you get either half your money back or they explode. 29-year-olds on big wages for big fees is an absolute no-no. However, Unai Emery really only wants to work with experienced players that he can trust, that he can put into his tactical system and truly believe that they will get it. The amount of young players that Villa have given Emery, and he has either completely ignored or played twice and then sent on loan, it's starting to look like a complete waste of money. So they keep taking shots in a sort of £7 to £10 million area for young players, and he just doesn't use them. At this point, you might as well just ignore all of the sort of established way of doing things and say, you know what? No, we are going to sign a 29-year-old for £40 million because he will actually use him and he will actually be good.
And he's also always available.
Yeah. Which
deals at that level and wages at that level of a player of that age is something that all clubs will have to think about. And he is. There have been patches of 2 and 3 weeks here and there over the past couple of seasons, but by and large, he's always there and ready to play.
And the best ability is?
Availability. Oh, God. Where were you, Bridgie?
Oh, sorry,
Michael.
I was looking at Sam. Sorry.
All right, let's quick fire one here. I'm going to put you all on the spot. We're talking about 3 West Ham United players here.
Yeah.
Right, first of all, for all of you, Jarrod Bowen, stay or go?
Go.
Michael?
Stay.
Go.
Matheus Fernandes, Sam, stay or go?
Go.
I'll go.
Yeah, gone.
Crescencio Somerville?
Go.
Go.
Yeah, he'll go.
Okay.
I think the hope for West Ham here is that you make enough money off Matheus Fernandes and Somerville combined that you're no longer in a position where you need to sell Bowen, and then you can just.
That would be the case.
That's why-
That
that's
if
how
they
I
sell
see
those
it.
two, they will be fine.
That's how I see it.
So then it's still a case of what does Bowen decide? Probably.
Yeah. Then it's on Bowen,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Right, we touched on Aston Villa just then and their link with Jarrod Bowen. Let's talk Aston Villa in a little bit more detail now. And the man that we consistently talk about during this transfer window, he's out there with England at the World Cup, of course, is Morgan Rogers. A bit of a development. I don't know what it means, if it means anything at all, Sam, that Aston Villa do not want to sell Morgan Rogers.
Shocking.
Shock.
Yeah.
We're not welcoming any bids for Morgan Rogers. Shock. Has it changed your mind about what his future's going to be?
No.
I didn't think it did.
I don't think that changes anything. We touched on it multiple times here. Like, why do you set a price of £75 million for Malo Gusto? Well, you want to get the best price available, right? And so Villa would never come out and say that, he's for sale for sure, definitely. Why don't you just bid and see what happens? They're going to say no, just like they should. This is exactly what you should do. You should say absolutely not. He's not going anywhere. And then, in the background, things will start happening and people will start scoping out prices. Intermediaries will go to work, and Rogers, his own will in this will be considered. If I had to pick, I would still expect Morgan Rogers to go this summer.
Yeah, I'm told there's no release clause in his contract that he signed very recently, Jack. How much is he worth then in the current market? I think there's a few things to consider here, isn't there? Because if you look at someone just as a player, you've got to also take into account how much he's worth to that club as well.
Yeah.
So, and compare him to other players in his position and how much they would have gone for. So Morgan Rogers, are we looking £100 million plus?
I think if you sat in the Aston Villa boardroom, you're definitely looking at £100 million plus. If you sat at the Emirates, you sort of look at, and I know going back to David Moyes, this is something he always thought that Declan Rice should have gone for at least another £50 million. But if you sat there having paid 105 for Declan Rice, you probably don't think Morgan Rogers is quite at that level. But if Elliot Anderson's worth 120, which I don't think any of us think he probably is, but that's what the market seems to think. If Fernandes is worth 80, 85, Villa will look round and say, look, won a European trophy, very proven in the Premier League. It's minimum 100 million.
See, in my head, I'm thinking 85, 90 in my head, and I'm thinking Villa are never going to accept that.
No.
Yeah. You have to also consider that they're going to lose a chunk of this fee to Middlesbrough for the sell-on. It's reportedly 20%. So your 100 immediately becomes 80. So it's going to have to be 120 to get 100. Well, no, not quite, but you know what I mean. If you want 100 million, it's got to go above. And Villa's financial settlement with UEFA will mean that they do really have to look after those numbers. They can't just go in there and be like, well, hopefully we get around this. They will be very, very specific and very precise on the amount of money they need to make from Morgan Rogers to set them in good stead for the next couple of years with UEFA. And so I would be shocked if Morgan Rogers goes for 80 million or less because Villa won't get enough out of that deal. He needs to go for 100 or more for it to be remotely worth it for them.
Sam, one player potentially coming in at Villa Park. This was a surprise. Currently playing in Brazil for Flamengo. I think collective eyebrows were raised when we heard this name, rather like this. Emerson Royal. Thoughts on that one? Pause.
So I don't think he's very good.
Sam.
Which is unfortunate. Look, the information that I have is that Villa want to find a backup for Matty Cash, and because of the UEFA settlement, they don't have a lot of money to throw around in this area. So whatever happens at right back this summer for Villa, it will be very cheap. Adjust your expectations for quality accordingly. You need to find a player who is willing to be on the bench and is going to be cheap, like probably 10 million euros or less. So unfortunately, whoever they sign here is not going to be that exciting.
So no Malo Gusto then at 75.
It doesn't sound like it, mate.
No.
Emerson, look, I don't have particularly strong memories. Don't have particularly positive memories of his time at Spurs.
Michael?
Well, I've just checked. He's still following me on X, and he's only following 54, so that's good ratio.
Well done, mate.
No, I'm going
Can
to
you drop
message
him
him
a
now.
message and see if he's joining Villa?
Yeah.
Sam says you're rubbish.
Well, that's the problem I've got now. I can't look. Ignore that bit.
Ignore that bit.
Oh.
Yeah.
The bit I remember the most is when he threw a flare in the air when Spurs took the lead against Arsenal in 2023. I'm going to say I'm surprised by the link. I'm very surprised. And I'd be on if I'm Villa, I'm a bit underwhelmed by that.
Before we go, we just want to discuss Leeds United because they are looking like they're getting quite busy in this Trummers transfer window as well. They tried to sign him before, Harry Wilson. It didn't work out, but it looks like it might this time, and for no money at all. Fantastic season for Fulham last season, Sam, and he's on a free transfer. This looks like a great bit of business for Leeds.
Yeah, he's been trying to get to Leeds for 12 months, hasn't he? Villa were looking at this one earlier in the season, and I do wonder. I don't know what his wage demands will be, but as a free transfer, those wages will be
significant.
They'll be pretty hefty. So Villa are under pressure there. I wonder if this was more of a Europa League transfer idea for Villa, and because they made it into the Champions League, they started to shift their focus. It's possible, but Leeds have come out of it looking pretty good. Strong Welsh contingent at Leeds. So you think about the situations that these players want to put themselves in, and there's 4 of them now, I think they're right. So that's quite a nice little group, and Wilson seems like a good get. Yeah, I mean, he's got some stunning goals.
I must say I'm worried for Fulham next season.
I think it will grate for Fulham a bit, won't it? I think losing him to Villa would have been a bit more easy to stomach. Seeing him go to Leeds for nothing is something that will be quite painful for a fair few Fulham fans, having already waved goodbye to Marco Silva.
Another player that they are very, very interested in is someone you've been reporting on, Shea Charles from Southampton. We think a £20 million offer went in, which was not enough as far as Southampton are concerned. Is he ready for the Premier League?
I think so. He's had a funny season in that he's had some incredibly high moments, scoring a winner at Leicester when Southampton were 3-0 down at half-time. He scored the winner to win 4-3. Scored a FA Cup quarter-final winner against the eventual Premier League champions in Arsenal, and scored an extra time winner in the Championship playoff semi-final to then be booted out through no fault of his own. But despite all that, he was never a regular starter for Southampton across the season. Came in at different times, but was kept out largely by Flynn Downs and Casper Yander, who is someone else that a few people at Southampton are worried that they might lose this summer. Yander was exceptional in the second half of the season, but Shea Charles is someone that has developed in the sense that he can now grasp these moments. He knows when to move in. The semi-final goal was quite fortuitous in it. It was a goal that Dale Fry sort of ducked out of the way of a hopeful cross that snuck in, but he comes on and makes impacts in these games. He had a loan to Sheffield Wednesday the season before, which was transformational for him, and had a lot going on there with nearly coming back. Sheffield United nearly signing him during the January and had to deal with a lot there. And the way he's dealt with not being a starter and still coming on and delivering has been really impressive. So I think for someone with his grounding in the City Academy, the way he's developed over the last few years and the way he's kicked on with limited chances and in terms of minutes this season, 20 million or just north of that is a good deal.
It's quite funny the way you speak about him there. If anyone hadn't ever seen him play, they'd think that you're describing like a goal machine from midfield, and it's just not the case. Like, no. He's a deep midfielder, and he's a great passer of the ball. Like the way he progresses it through the lines, he's super. That's his job. That's the main thing that he does. The goals have just been this like lovely bonus this season. They've been flying in from range.
I'd forgotten one. I think it was against Oxford as
the
well.
Oxford one.
He bent into the top corner ridiculous. From about 30 yards. That you just never expect that from him at the start of the season.
But if you're buying Shea Charles, you're buying a really good progressive passer from deep in midfield. You're not buying Thomas Hitzelsberger reincarnated. But they did seem to happen this season. So I think Charles is great. Like, be a brilliant signing for Leeds.
Just a final one, Sam, and this could be a real coup for Leeds United. Julian Brandt is going to be a free agent at the end of the month from Borussia Dortmund. There is that famous story, isn't there, about Jurgen Klopp? Have I got this one right? When they were deciding between Mohamed Salah and Jurgen Klopp's choice was Julian Brandt. And the stats and the numbers suggested no, Salah is probably the better bet. Just about worked out for them.
Just about,
didn't it? But the fact that the fact that Brandt was in the conversation this could be a great signing for Leeds, couldn't it?
Also, because Brandt nearly signed for Liverpool 8 years ago.
Yeah.
This is
Yes.
a great signing for Leeds.
Yes.
I will say that Julian Brandt's career has drifted a little bit in the last year or so. Injuries. Dortmund are always a bit of a
Sorry,
a
Leeds
strange
fans, I was
one.
trying to big it up here.
No, I mean it's interesting, but this is they're not signing a star player. If this is the case, he's a bit like how Marco Reus sort of just faded. I think that's probably the case with Julian Brandt. Although I will admit that I haven't seen like tons of him in the last year.
I think for Leeds, though, you look at the three that have come up, and I look at definitely Hull and Ipswich are going to find it really tough. That another, I know this isn't what Leeds are aspiring to, but if they've stayed up, which was key, and then progress and stay up again, then they're establishing themselves in the Premier League, which they've not been able to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant stuff. Sam?
Yeah.
Michael? And on debut,
Jack
Rosser, thank you very much indeed. And thank you all for listening and watching, of course, this latest episode of the Transfer Talk podcast, wherever you've been listening or watching, in your cars or on the train, in the wind or in the rain, in your house or in the shed, on your couch or in your bed, on the hills or in the valleys, in the streets or in the alleys. I hope you're not listening there. Out for a run or maybe a walk. Thanks for listening to Transfer Talk.
And that's for sure.